Hey everyone, come on in for another extra time designed to accompany today's Sunday session. An opportunity to think a bit more about some of the areas we've covered, perhaps some of the issues which might have been raised from what we've looked at earlier. As we continue our run up to Christmas through this Advent season, we contrasted Jesus' humble beginnings with those of King Herod, and in particular looked at Herod's hilltop palace on the horizon above Bethlehem, his fortress known as Herodium. Now, if you'll forgive my geeky time team tendencies, it was hopefully interesting to take a look at the remains of what was once a mightily impressive construction. Remains which are able to be visited to this day. But an opening question to get our minds moving. What's your favourite historical building or place that you visited, and why? In this session we looked at what a tyrant King Herod was, the paranoia concerning his power which overwhelmed him, and the horrific acts of violence he ordered and sometimes took part in himself to secure his position from those he thought would try to overthrow him. One of these acts is mentioned in the Bible, the slaughter which Herod orders of all the young boys under the age of 2 in and around Bethlehem in order to try and assassinate Jesus, this newly arrived child, who the wise men inform Herod has been born to be King of the Jews. In the session, I contrasted some of the characteristics of Herod with Jesus. Paranoia versus peace, for example. Intimidation versus inclusion. Extreme extravagance versus a peasant life of poverty. And it's this last contrast which I focused on as seemingly being an intentional choice of God's for Jesus to be born into. A deliberate identification with and immersion in the life of the poor. And so a couple of questions on this. Do you agree that God intended for Jesus to be born into poverty? And if so, why? And then secondly, when we look at the life of Jesus, is it right to say he had a bias towards the poor? And what are some of the implications of your answer? Indeed, following on from our reflections on these questions, here's another question to consider. Jesus says in Luke chapter 14 verse 33, "Those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples." How would you say we're meant to apply these words of Jesus to our lives? Now, in the session, I showed a report from the BBC about the work of 2 church leaders in Burnley as they and their churches responded to the needs of their neighbours. And so thinking about your own church, could be St John's you're a part of, could be another church. If you're not really part of a church, think about the general community to which you belong. To what extent do you think the church, both local and national, is focused on meeting the needs of the poor? And in light of your answer, what do you think Jesus would want to say to our churches and our communities? Okay, hopefully that's given us something to chew on today. As always, thanks very much for engaging with these sessions. And do pass them on and share them with others if you're finding them worthwhile. Until next time, and a further dose of Advent input, take care and let's get together again soon. Alright, bye for now.